Hello everyone and welcome back to our channel. We will continue with our book about the ones on earth who were left behind from the book Living Among the Stars. If you want to hear the readings from the other chapters, please take a look. We have read chapters 1, 2, and 3 so far, and this is number 4. The title is Had Become a Burden. I had a little too much to drink. I lay there in my pod, looking up the plastic white ceiling, wondering what to do with my life. I was 25, with all the resources I needed, but not interested in anything Earth had to offer. It was a dull little planet with people who seemed to lack imagination. Yet again, I could say that. I wasn't working hard to survive. Well, in actuality, the only ones working hard were the ones who wanted to have extras, since the UBI had been introduced 300 or 400 years ago. If they wanted to work so hard, it was up to them. The Essentials didn't work so hard. They owned the ALFs. They didn't have to lift a finger. They even had sex ALFs to the point that marriage was hardly even heard of in their ranks. Having a partner had become a burden for them. Why not have ALFs who you could constantly win arguments with? Yet again, the ALFs I was hanging around with hardly let you win any arguments. I was a peon, though. Had I been an essential, they probably would have. I thought Cindy actually liked me a little. I folded my fingers behind my head and smiled until I remembered that she was a sex bot. She was programmed to be charming to men. She was just built that way. A loud knock startled me. Someone was knocking on my pod. I wondered who it was. I crawled toward my front door, being that you couldn't stand up in the thing, and opened it. A tall black woman stood there. She was dressed in a business suit. I wondered if she was a lawyer or something. Had I offended some nut who was trying to sue me or steal my property? I crawled out as dignified as I could. It's hard to look dignified getting up from all fours. She just watched. She looked as serious as an ALF. If she was one, they had done a heck of a job. I stood up. She was tall, about 5'10". She had light brown skin, and her hair was black and curly, hanging down just below her shoulders. Her lips were thick, sensuous. I would say painted a purple color matching her suit. She lifted a corner of her mouth. "Mr. Williams, is it?" she asked, looking down at the small digit pad. She looked up expectantly. "Yes. With whom am I speaking?" Her eyes widened a bit, and she smiled. "Sheila. Sheila Benton. I'm your community leadership chair. We talk to political potentialities so that we can see if they will be fit to be community captains. Your name was submitted." "Oh, yes, that was a long time ago," I said. I thought I had been turned down. "Not hardly, Mr. Williams. We take potential candidates very seriously. We reach out to everyone regardless of race, age, social status." She looked down at my pod. "Or sexual orientation. The more diverse and multicultural our representatives, the more points of view we have." "Really?" I said. "I didn't know you were interested in that." "Yes, we are." She was a little pissed, but tried to hide it. I smiled a bit, and when she realized what I was doing, she smiled too. "Okay, Mr. Williams. You may just call me James, Miss Benton. Call me Sheila. May we go inside?" "Little cramped in there, don't you think?" I asked. "Yes, but I wasn't going to say anything. Where's your house?" "This is it." "What?" "You got to be joking." "No, I'm not joking." "Why waste space?" "There is a common house somewhere nearby for guests and for meetings." "A common house. But we can sit right here on my patio." "As you will. Some friends may be coming by, but you can just ignore them if you like." I motioned to one of the large overstuffed chairs. She took a seat and I took the other one. So tell me a little bit about James. We need to know this if you're running for office. Do you have any skeletons in your closet, so to speak? Yes, only one, maybe two, maybe three. She leaned back. I guess this is off the record. I'm not a reporter, just an advisor. You can believe this is just between us and possibly on a need-to-know basis for certain people in the party. I leaned back. I didn't know we had parties anymore. One thing that may be somewhat troubling to the unenlightened, I said, is that my father was a successful businessman who also supported strong unions and even helped to financially support union organizing groups. No response. Another is that I used to purchase precious metals before people really started emptying this planet. I traded them in for the new cryptocurrency when it came out, and I am very well off financially. She looked over at my pot and grinned. Really? How much well off are we talking? Too well off for one person, I think. And lastly, I have ALFs as friends. Well, that isn't a problem. ALFs are becoming more popular. The planet's almost full of them, with every people. Bleep. The planet's almost full of them, with very few humans left. There's a well-off being, though. That could be problematic. I guess it could, yet again, if I'm not elected, I shrugged. You can look at it that way. She looked down at her pad. I've been taking notes. I hope you don't mind. She tapped the side of her head. Nano reader. I shook mine. She must have been crazy to let someone put experimental chips in her head. She arched her brows. Do you have anything else you'd like to mention? No, that's about it. Well, we will definitely be in contact then, James. We will be vetting you. And if someone seems to be shadowing you or following you, they probably are. That is sort of the security protocol. Really? Rather extreme, isn't it? You have to remember that you'll be working with the essentials if you're elected. The essentials are very careful about who they contact and who they don't. We like our privacy. We? We. You are an essential? I was. I am, I guess. I am just a rebellious child, according to my father, who will be back soon. I have dedicated my life to making the world better for people. He just thinks it's a waste of time and some rite of passage that all young, naive essentials have to pass through before they become wise. So here I am, the unwise Sheila, I said. Yes, the unwise Sheila. She stood, I did also. By the way, it would look better if you could buy some property or rent. Get a bigger pot at least. One big enough to have personal meetings in. She looked across at the playground and farther down the thin path that my little place was located on. It might be better not to live in an alley, too. This is no alley. This is my driveway. What are you talking about? I pointed with my chin. That is my food forest back there. I have plenty of land, and I think I like the pod that I have, Sheila. Far be it from me to interfere then. We stood. She grinned and extended her hand. We shook hands. It has been a pleasure. You will hear back from us soon. Don't you need my number? We will find it if we do. She turned and walked away. I got a negative vibe from her. I didn't know if I wanted to be involved with this. As she was going out, I saw her pass Roland in the grassy driveway. She gave him a second glance as he headed toward my pod. I sat again, thinking about that encounter. She said all the right things, very charming, but something wasn't right. She seemed pretty snooty to me. To be truthful, I wondered if it was just me. Chapter 5. Stooped over to look. Roland came cruising through on his daily rounds. He usually walked down the very long grassy path in which my pod was located to the grounds that I owned in the back, looking for intruders. It was a food forest. There were enough fruits and vegetables to sustain many people. I, of course, partook of it regularly. There were also animals roaming freely, so I could have meat if I wanted, but I had to hunt the animals or have someone else do it. I would give them half of what they caught or shot for their efforts. There was more food than I could possibly eat. People often made their way back there to get food. I didn't stop them. What we didn't want was someone destroying everything back there or trying to take more food than they could use. This was a garden to be shared, not hoarded. Roland and the other ALFs made sure that didn't happen. This time he paused at my front door, which was open. He stooped over and looked in. I was reading. "What's going on, James?" he asked. I looked up and smiled. "Roland, how are you? I haven't seen you in a while." "Oh, I've been having meetings, about this political thing, this race. We don't vote. I don't know why. They want our input." "Really? I didn't know that. Property can't vote, James." "Wow, I never thought of you that way." "I don't like to think of myself that way either." He paused. "Hey, I hear that one of the reps was here to see you yesterday." "Yes." "What was her name?" "Sheila. Her name was Sheila. Had a few questions. She was a strange woman. Told me I should get a bigger house for meetings and to have a better image. Said I should move into a little house. Well, it would be better for having guests. If it's raining or cold, your party's over." "We have a group home." "True, but it's not really the same now, is it?" "It is to me," I said. I thought about it. "Truth is, I don't want to have some big half-empty place that I have to fill up with all kinds of stuff." "You have a problem with stuff?" I slid out of my little pod. "Not at all, just too much. I don't want to be attached to it. And if you get married—" I hadn't thought of that. Believe me, I really hadn't thought of that. "You're still young and human. Don't you want to breed?" "No desire whatsoever to breed." "That's amazing. That's all most humans seem to think of. Not breeding, just having the sex." No, I know what I mean. I'm not talking about sexual activity. I'm talking about leaving a new version of themselves here to spoil the earth a bit more." No, to make it better." "You are really a pessimist, aren't you, James?" "No idea." "I have to finish my rounds," he said quickly, as if he had just looked at the watch. He grinned. "I guess I've done something pretty ALF. Every time you look that way, I know that you are noticing my ALF behaviors." "You're that observant, are you?" "Very observant." He tilted his head slightly to the side. I tried to suppress my smile. He grinned. "I gotta go. You want to walk with me on my rounds?" "Sure, I might as well stretch my legs and see what's going on the property. For a while the family was back there. I don't mind that, but I don't want it to be taken over, if you know what I mean." "That would never happen. The property is monitored 24/7. If that happens—" He gave his thumb a jerk. "They are out." "Good. Let's go." We headed back to the food forest. I loved to be back there. I often thought of getting a little house pod buried deep in the food forest right in front of the small pond in the corner that was right up against the natural stone wall. It was quiet and still. It was at the end of a small stream that moved just enough to keep it aerated and fresh. You could see fish swimming near the surface sometimes. The water was fresh enough to drink since most of the humans had left. The essentials and their new ALF population didn't make the world more bearable. To be truthful, I kind of liked it. I felt a little guilty about it, but I thought those elites ran the world better than these so-called democratic people who were in power before they were. There was only one difference between their governments and the ones before. They kept everyone satisfied and provided all of the basic needs. It was difficult to get extras, as difficult as it had ever been throughout history. but the basics were there. The difference was that previously one had to constantly struggle to obtain the basics. The only thing that I questioned was the fact that many people had to leave this paradise, as they called it, to live more exciting lives. I could be here forever without being bored. But for most people, it's like being in a low security prison. We stepped back into the woods. There was food all over the place. Fiddle ferns covered the floor, as well as carrots and other types of herbs. There were many fruit trees, collards, and kale everywhere. Fruit trees and mulberry bushes were growing well and strong. Spruce and pine stood tall, even though they couldn't be used for food by me anyway. They did provide pine nuts and resting places for some of the insects and small animals. Very few birds had survived. The essentials were talking about cloning new ones and introducing them back into nature after a long study on how they would impact the world, having been gone so long. Wild chickens and pigs roamed freely, along with goats, sheep, alpacas, and ducks. All kinds of animals that could be used as food or for eggs. The rabbits were abundant. They bred so fast that you could probably live off of them all of your life. I had a small gun. I had a little rifle for hunting. No one had guns for killing except for the army, and the whole army was ALF, and programmed not to be as erratic and violent as humans. We walked on the path. Every once in a while an insect would come buzzing by or some type of animal would run through the underbrush. The sun shined down through the canopy, and when we got to the open spaces it was bright and warm. We kept walking until we came to the pond. It was either a large pond or a small lake. It was full of things like fish and tadpoles. Everyone was surprised that the frogs and the tadpoles lasted through all of the die-offs. But here they were. All kinds of fish, frogs, tadpoles, lizards. The reptiles and the amphibians had done well, better than the humans. We stopped and I looked over the pond. You know, Roland, this pond has a very common effect on me and most humans. I don't know why. I don't know if it's the sound or the way it reflects sunlight. It may be something primordial. I think that might be it, he said. It has no effect whatsoever on me. He looked out over the water. I wish it did. Maybe if I associated it with some good memory or something, it might. He looked at me. I think so. Everything is so temporary. Sometimes all that you have after everything is gone are your memories. True. Perhaps this will be a good memory to pair with this pond. He smiled a bit. It will for me, I said. I am happy. Then. And we are friends, are we? Yes, we are. As a friend, I say, get a bigger pod. When those people make a suggestion, they expect you to do it. And Cindy likes you. What? How can she like me? She just does. She hasn't said so, but I can tell by the way she looks at you. I didn't know ALFs could like people. Of course we can. We just cannot dislike people. And there we go, folks. We have read chapter 4 and 5, and we will be putting up chapter 6 for the next reading. Thanks for being with us. Subscribe, hit the bell, explore some of our other videos, and hit the like sign so that our videos will be available to more people on this YouTube station. Thanks for being with us. You can find more information about us down below. It's always good to be with you. Namaste.